What's going on, everybody? You are watching the NFL Experts. I'm Wayne G, joined as always by Mark. What's going on?
I'm good, Wayne. How are you, man? Party on.
Hey, party on. I'm not doing too bad. I'm getting over a cold, which is why my pipes don't sound so goldenly velvet smooth like they usually do. Got a little bit of a nasal thing going on, but I'm going to make it through. I got enough of a voice to get through the show.
You got some snow up there on the East Coast?
Not yet, but just cold weather.
Okay, same here.
Now, I do want to let people know, because I think last show we forgot to do this right off the bat. Follow us on social media at NFL Experts Pod. Now, when I say social media, I mean all social media. I mean Twitter. I mean Instagram. I mean TikTok. I mean YouTube, right? If it's social media, at NFL Experts Pod. And if you want to email us, nflexpertspod@gmail.com. And the cool thing about that, if you email us a question, it will get on the show. We have 2 fan questions today that were emailed in. They could have been yours. Email in your questions.
Yes, find us, people.
And share stuff too. If you're following us on Twitter or Facebook, whatever, share some of the stuff. Let other people know how great we are, that there's only one set of NFL experts, and they're right here Wednesdays, every Wednesday at 7.
Live.
Now, we are going to talk football right away. No holiday stuff, people. I know you guys were all like, hey, get rid of the holiday stuff. Well, you know what? Grinches. We're going back to football. All right. So we are going to kick things off with one of the bigger stories that came out of the season so far. Season's almost over. Reporting eligible. Now, if you were watching the Lions and the Cowboys game, what you saw is the Lions marching down the field. They're down, 20 to 13? No, 20 to 14. They're down 20 to 14. They march down, they get a touchdown. It's 2020. Dan Campbell, monster-sized balls, right? So I'm going for 2,
Fighting kneecaps, bro.
So he goes for 2. No, I'm sorry. It was 21-20 because he was going for 2 to get the win, not the tie. So
Yes.
He goes for the win. They throw a touchdown to Taylor Decker, who then the touchdown is called off saying illegal touching, because what they're saying is that he did not report as an eligible receiver and therefore was not able to catch the ball. Now, obviously, there's a lot of layers and nuance to the story. I'm curious, when you were watching this, Mark, what did you think when this initially happened?
Well, as we've been talked about through most of our podcasts, these refs have been terrible. And it's just man, another terrible call. I don't know. I think my opinion on it, dude, is I think that the Lions were trying to confuse the Cowboys so much in this play call that it confused the refs. So much so that they called the wrong player eligible. And they still continued after the game, no, this person one that reported, no. They got it all wrong, because the players even came out and said, no, I report, Decker said he reported, the other guy said he didn't. They just confused them because they were trying to confuse the Cowboys, and it confused the refs. My point is shouldn't they be blamed in some way for being confused? They shouldn't be confused if they're the refs, right?
Wrong, because they put procedures in place to keep this from happening. What they did now, as I said, instead of just saying, hey, I'm reporting as eligible, which is what the Lions did, is verbally communicated the eligibility. You're supposed to take your hands and rub them down the front of your jersey to let the ref know, I'm number 70. I'm reporting as eligible. And that's part of it too, is that number 70, which I have here, is Dan Skipper. Dan Skipper usually reports as eligible. I think for the last game, it was 7 times he reported as eligible. So
yeah, he's the guy that reports. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So he came in, he approached the referee and said something, or just pretended to say something.
He pretended to say something, because I was saying they were trying to confuse the Cowboys.
Exactly. But all that Decker had to do was rub the front of his jersey, and he would have been reported eligible. And here's also where I blame the Lions and not the refs on this, is after you report eligible, they announce it over the loudspeaker. Number 70 has reported as eligible.
You're right. So the Lions should have caught it.
Yeah,
right?
They should have been oh, no, not 70, 68.
No, you're right. They should have. That's another big mistake. I realized after the fact, is they should have been no, that's not the guy we need reporting So like I was saying, it was all confusion all around. Like, but I still feel like the refs shouldn't have been the ones confused. Like they're the ones that shouldn't be the ones confused on the field, you know?
Yeah, but I like I said, I also get it that nobody signaled like they were taught to. Like everyone's taught to signal, I'm the eligible receiver because it's loud in those stadiums. I mean, they were playing in Dallas, right? It's loud. And so the reason they have you do that is for those Arrowhead, Seattle games where you can just say, hey, the ref can't hear me saying I'm reporting as eligible, but if I rub the front of my jersey, he knows I am. That's why they have that in place. But like you said, they were intentionally trying to confuse the Cowboys, so they didn't want to let them know. And I think they screwed themselves. I don't really blame the refs on this one because they made it confusing in a loud stadium, and the refs did the best they could with what they had.
And the more you mention and you talk, like you're right, and that's basically probably what happened. There's a bunch of confusion all around. So I get it. Like I was listening to a show today. Chris Sims came out and said he was like they should just get rid of all this whole eligible and ineligible stuff, like and just keep it regular football. It's just all it is just trickery.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that because then you're getting rid of some of the rules too, like illegal man downfield. Because whatever, they're all football players. Everybody's downfield. I don't know. I think those rules are there for a reason. This one here, I just thought was funny. When they got the 2-point conversion, I was like, wow, and everyone's celebrating. And then when it got called back, I also kind of felt like, as much as I gave Dan Campbell credit for going for 2,
he should have called a field goal, right?
That after they got called, after it got
overruled, dude, I agree with you. I'm like, what are you doing? And I'm like, you didn't make it. Call the field goal. Go for the freaking overtime, man. Like,
right, you're not gonna trick them twice in a row.
I got to tell you, like that guy's got. Sorry for my language. Balls of steel, dude. Like that, he was just like, I'm going for this, man.
I like that balls. You're like, sorry for the language, knowing what you're going to be talking about in the 2-minute warning. All right, so that's kind of how we feel about the Lions and the Cowboys. It was a crazy, crazy story. And the next story we're going to talk about, I think is funny because I didn't even want to put it in the show for peek behind the curtain. I was like, it's a boring topic, but then I already started arguing with Mark 2 seconds into him talking about it. So all right, we're putting it on the show. And
that's kind of how these things come to be with us, is we start arguing about a topic and we're like, all right, it's going in.
Michigan beats Alabama 27-20 in overtime. They're going to the national championship. They're going to play against Washington. A lot of talk about Jim Harbaugh and what his future is, particularly will he go to the NFL? Now, I know that you have a feeling about it, and I'll have you talk about it. I'm curious if your feeling is contingent on him beating Washington or if it doesn't matter to you.
That's tough to say. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what side I'd be on that, but I think, in my opinion, I think that if he wins, I think more likely if he wins the national title, that'll just be one more accomplishment that he wanted to achieve, but he still hasn't achieved. Like I was talking in our discussions, like the Super Bowl is his holy grail of coaching. He's come out and said it. So it's like, I feel like no matter what he's done, because I feel like no matter what, he still brought Michigan to something that they weren't in a long time. They were like, you know what I mean? They weren't one of the higher teams. Now, they're one of the top teams every year. Like, he brought that all back to Michigan. So it's like his job is kind of already done, even if they don't win the national title. But if they do, it's like icing on the cake. So it's like, I feel like he's leaving no matter what.
Well, before I get to my rebuttal to your point, I'm going to make my points, which is this. Michigan has already offered him a 10-year, $125 million contract to stay the head coach. This would make him the highest paid coach in college football, ahead of Nick Saban, who's making $11.4 million, and Dabo Swinney making $10.9. He'd be making $12.5. So he'd be the highest paid coach in college football. Also, in college football, unlike the NFL, which is designed for parity, which is designed for you to win the Super Bowl and then finish last place the following year, college football, when you get to that mountaintop and you're a national champion, you're going to be in the playoff every single year if you're good at recruiting, which obviously he is. Look at Nick Saban. He's in the playoff every single year. Harbaugh could be in the playoffs every single year. Why go to a league to try to chase that holy grail when you may never even make the playoffs?
But he's not Nick Saban, man. He's his own guy. Like, Nick Saban is content being in that national playoff contingency every year. Harbaugh was in the NFL and succeeded in the NFL. Saban did not succeed in the NFL. He's terrible in the NFL. Like, Harbaugh, I don't know what he has, but he has a knack for being a really good coach, NFL or college. And I just think that he hasn't scratched that itch yet, and he needs to do that, especially if they win the national title. He's going to be like, okay, I've done this. My brother already won a title who beat me in that game, and he possibly might win another one. So it's like that whole brotherly rivalry, all that, man. I just feel like he's going to go, especially now because the Chargers job's open, Raiders job's open. There's going to be like his select choices of where he wants to go. And then in both those places, he can pick the GM. He can handpick the GM. And that was like the whole issue that he had in San Francisco and the whole reason why he left the NFL.
Well, and my contention, this is my thing, is you're talking about him wanting to go to the NFL to get that holy grail, to get that Super Bowl, which he covets so dearly. So what better way to get a Super Bowl title than coaching the Raiders or the Bears or the Commanders? Like, you know,
the Chargers.
Or the Chargers. You're going to a bad team. At least the Chargers have a franchise quarterback in place. They've got a decent defense. They have no cap space, so you can't add to that team at all, no matter who your GM is. But they all have problems. So you're going to teams that have 4 and 5 wins or fewer, you know.
But the Niners were the same thing when he walked in there, dude. They were terrible.
I don't know about terrible. They weren't that bad.
They were like 4 or 5 win seasons before he was there.
I'd have to look into it. I didn't do that research, so I have to take your word for it, even though I don't think you did that research either.
I didn't do the research, but I'm pretty sure, dude, I used to follow them back then, and they were terrible. I don't know how many games they won. Like, I'm telling you, it wasn't like over 500. I'm pretty sure of that.
Well, he also caught lightning in a bottle with Colin Kaepernick, who was really one of the first, like, really mobile quarterbacks who could sling it and run, you know, who could throw for 300 and run for 200 in the same game. And it was when it was just starting. I mean, we had Michael Vick, sure, but like that was like the beginning of that phase of mobile quarterbacks. So he was kind of lucky in that situation. I don't know if lightning strikes twice, especially if he goes to the Chargers. He doesn't have that, so he's got to go try to
get Herbert. You don't think Herbert's a good future quarterback that he could groom?
He's a great quarterback, but he's been seen. It's been done. He's Dan Marino, and how many Super Bowls did Dan Marino win?
One. Or none.
My bad. 0. Now none. I really don't trust your research. All right. So he won
none,
0. 0 Super Bowls, and he was one of the greatest passers in the history of the game. Herbert, I think, is going to be one of the greatest passers in the history of the game. I just don't know if that team is built to win a Super Bowl. I don't know. I mean, maybe they are, maybe they're not. I don't know. I just think that if I'm Harbaugh, and this is just me, I don't know his motives. Maybe he's competitive with his brother. Maybe he's not. I don't know. What I do know is that you've got a situation where the university loves you. You're going to get $125 million guaranteed, which means that in 2 years, if you finish crappy and you get fired, you still get the whole $125 million. It's $125 million guaranteed, no matter how you play. The university loves you. You've got sponsors. So not only are you getting the 12.5, you're probably getting another 6 or 7 in sponsors deals. You're winning the national championship. You've got a great incoming class. You can recruit anybody from the portal. It's just a really good situation. Like, why not just keep winning and then maybe down the road go to the NFL? I don't know.
No, I see your point, Wayne, but I just think that he's ready to go now because he flirted with the NFL last year. He was going to take the Vikings job. They decided to go with Kevin O'Connell.
All right. Well, let me ask you this. So, again, he's being offered 12.5 now. The highest paid coach in the NFL is Bill Belichick, $20 million a year. He won't get that. Bill has it in his contract that he will be the highest paid coach in the NFL no matter what contracts coaches sign, his pay automatically gets bumped to being the highest. So he's not going to get Bill's money.
Wait,
Peyton,
Bill gets what?
What?
Bill gets how much?
$20 million.
Okay, that's right, because Sean Payton gets 18. I know that.
18, right. So when Peyton signed his deal, Bill got a raise.
Okay.
Then we've got Carroll and McVay both make 15, and then Tomlin makes 12.5. So Tomlin's making what he's being offered at Michigan, and Tomlin's the 5th highest paid coach in the NFL. So what kind of contract do we expect him to get if he does go to San Diego, or I'm going to say San Diego, so LA or wherever? I'm thinking probably he's looking at that.
I do it too.
I don't think he's looking at 18 or 20. I think he's probably looking maybe 15 ceiling. So again,
that's what I'm thinking too. I'm thinking 15. It's still more than what he's going to get in Michigan. And also it's another thing, like same as college, he's going to get the whole payout, however long the contract is. So I don't know, man. I'm just like, it's up to him if he thinks these teams are worth the rebuild. Like he thought the Niners were at one time.
Maybe. I mean, again, I'm betting against it. It doesn't make sense to me. I think definitely if he loses, I think he comes back because he really wants to win for Michigan.
Okay. I can see that point also.
Now, a team that's not going to be playing for a national championship, potentially. The Eagles, and this is your headline here. The Eagles are reeling, and they are. They're 1-5 or 1-4 in their last 5 games. They lost to the Cardinals. They barely beat the Giants, and then they lost to the Seahawks, lost to the Cowboys, were demolished by the 49ers. They have the Giants next. They could lose that game. I mean, they almost lost the first time to the Giants.
Yep.
What is going on in Philly? I mean, I predicted this early in the season, but I'm curious. What are your thoughts? What is going on in Philadelphia?
I don't know. I'm with you, man. Like, yeah, they lost 4 of the last 6. They have A.J. Brown complaining about not getting the ball. He came out today finally and was like, no, that's not what's going on. Their defense is playing terrible. Like, they have no pass rush. I'm not sure if Patricia is the answer at defensive coordinator for them. I think losing Steichen and Gannon they're both defensive and offensive coordinator, is hurting them this year a lot. Not sure why. Maybe those guys are really contributing more than actually Sirianni is. Not sure.
No, I think I like Patricia as the defensive coordinator. I just think that, they brought him into that role for last week or two. So he hasn't had a whole season to really get to know this team. He's been a consultant, I think, prior to getting that role. They've had injuries on the defensive side of the ball, but yeah, like you said, no pass rush, which has led to them giving up like a passer rating of 99 against them. Teams are lighting them up in the air. And this is a passing league. So every team you play against is going to light you up in the air. I just don't think that their offense is good enough to overcome those weaknesses, particularly when Jalen Hurts is throwing 2 interceptions a game.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it, though, too, is Hurts has to, keep them into the games. Dude, the game against the Cardinals, the Cardinals didn't punt the whole game. Like, they were just killing them, dude.
Yeah, well, and I think Kyler Murray is really good as well. We don't have any Kyler Murray topics, so I'll just say I'm a big Kyler Murray fan. Cannon for an arm. He's a little guy, but I called him Russell 2.0 when he first came into the league. I said he's going to be better than Russell Wilson because he's got a better arm and he's more mobile. He's a good player. I think the Cardinals actually – I don't want to knock the Eagles for losing to the Cardinals because with Kyler Murray, the Cardinals are a fringe playoff team. They're a good team, but he's only been there for the 3 or 4 games.
Yeah, man. Like I was saying, I think the Eagles are in trouble, man. Like, if they go to the playoffs, let's say they barely beat the Giants, it's like they're going to go in the playoffs playing like this. That's not good for them.
No, it's going to be one and done for them.
Like, they are not the same team from last year, and you can clearly see it.
Yeah, maybe next year for them. I did want to touch on the A.J. Brown thing because I did read a report from the Philadelphia Inquirer saying that he's torn the locker room in 2. I don't know. Is that hyperbole? Like, has he really torn the locker room in 2, or is he just kind of complaining?
I don't know. He's probably just causing drama, dude, which doesn't help the whole situation. I read somewhere that they did one of those secret rooms to gain camaraderie. It's that doesn't sound good.
Yeah, it's dumb. It's like whenever they have those player only meetings, like, oh, we had a player only meeting. Ugh, your team's in trouble.
Yeah. So when I heard that, I was like, uh-oh, that's not good.
And I also don't like when receivers talk about not getting the ball. Like Stephon Diggs last year, right? Like, I need to get the ball more. You need to get the ball when you're open. All right? Get open. We'll get you the ball.
Right. I see both sides of that because they feel like, hey, if I get the ball more, I'm going to help us win. So, either way, diva.
Yeah. Well, we'll get into some diva, big mouth, wide receivers in just a minute. But the next topic we have here is rest him or play him. Lamar Jackson, that's the topic now because 1 game left in the season, and people have been asking this question. This boggles my mind. I don't know who first started asking this or why, and I'm curious to get your thoughts. Why are people even asking this question?
What do you mean? In what regard?
He's finally healthy. Give him 2 weeks off. You've already clinched the number 1 seed you're getting a first round bye. What do you have to gain by playing Lamar Jackson? Or furthermore, what do you have to lose by not playing him?
I'm going to tell you I'm going to be devil's advocate for a minute because this is the side of why you do want to play him. The last time the Ravens had the number 1 seed, they did this. They rested him and they limped into the playoffs against the Titans. They had a terrible game and they lost. So I'm like, why would you want to repeat that? I know they're not the same team that they were then, whatever. But I mean, the Titans had played the Patriots the week before, so it was pretty much almost like a playoff game for them. So they were like ready to go, and then the Ravens weren't ready for that. Like, do they want another repeat of that? It's the forever question, Wayne. Rest versus rust.
And I say rest him. This is the person that you do not want to risk getting hurt, not even a stubbed toe, okay? Because their whole season hinges on him being the quarterback. Whether or not they go to the Super Bowl, which I have them going to the Super Bowl, winning the Super Bowl and him winning the Super Bowl MVP. All of that is contingent on him being healthy. And if you put him out there in that last game just to avoid getting rusty and he sprains an ankle or twists his knee, you're screwed.
No, I understand that perspective. I'm just he did that once before. I'm the type of person, Wayne, that I learn from my mistakes. And if I felt that, like, I'm not saying he does, but if I was him, I would have felt like that was a mistake, and I would have tried to right my mistake. But I was like, okay, I did that wrong last time. I'm going to do this right this time.
And I think that while there is that old adage, history repeats itself, I think that the big mistake that people make in that train of thought is that history does not repeat itself identically, right? So if you are flipping over an egg, you're trying to make eggs over easy, right? And we've all done this, and we've ever tried to make eggs over easy. You break the yolk, right? Like, damn it, got to start again, right? Why would I start again? I'm just going to break the yolk every single time, right? Or might I get it right the next time?
Yeah, that's a good perspective of it. I'm on the side of that. He rested last time and they lost. If I was a player, I want to do everything to win. Like, I'm going to try to not have that repeated in any sense or form. So I'm going to play. Like, if I was Lamar, I'd be like, I want to play. And it has already came out. I just read before our podcast that they are starting Tyler Huntley.
Right. That's the right play. I mean, you start the guy, you still game plan as if Lamar is the starter and Huntley has to run all the Lamar plays. And who cares if you win or lose? Because you're like, whatever, we're just going out there. I wouldn't even start any of the defensive starters. Like, I would seriously be like, hey, everybody is playing for a contract next year. You're on the practice squad. Go show me you want to be on the team next year.
And then it's also, too, don't they want to upset the Steelers? Like, they play the Steelers and the Steelers are trying to get in, you know?
No.
Does that come into play now?
Nope, doesn't matter. This isn't high school. This isn't college. There's no rivalries like that. It's basically, they don't care if the Steelers get in or not. They get a first round bye. The Steelers are going to be one and done. And we're going to talk about the Steelers in just a second. Yeah, they don't care about that. I think that they're caring about going in fully healthy. So like I said, rest Lamar, rest your entire starting defense, play nothing but scrubs, lose 50-0. It won't matter in the second round of the playoffs.
All right. We're going to once again agree to disagree, Wayne.
Okay. Well, when the Ravens win the Super Bowl, well, remember I said.
And when they don't, if they don't, then we'll remember what I said.
Okay, well, we'll see. So, speaking of the Steelers, Kenny Pickett has been benched for the last game of the season against the Ravens. Even with the Ravens starting their second string quarterback, you have a chance to make the playoffs, and they're not going to play Kenny Pickett. I personally totally understand this and wouldn't play Kenny Pickett. I'm not a big Kenny Pickett fan. How do you feel about Kenny Pickett, and do you think this is the right decision?
I didn't think Kenny Pickett was that impressive when he got drafted. I think the only reason they picked him so high and so, like, because they needed a quarterback. Like, they were desperate, dude. Like, and he was the best of the group that came out that year, and so that's why they went with him. And he's had some good games. Like, he's had flashes of good, but I wouldn't say he's definitely a good quarterback. So, like, I'm kind of with them. Like, Mason Rudolph has won games. Like, he beat the Bengals and he beat the Seahawks. Like, yeah, I would go with him too.
Yeah, see, I don't even think that he was the best quarterback in the draft that year. I mean, there was a guy who set the NCAA record for passing yards and passing touchdowns that year. And Bailey Zappi.
Say what? Say that again?
I said that there was a quarterback in that same draft that set the record for most passing yards in a season and most passing touchdowns in a season in college football history that year, in Bailey Zappi.
Oh,
So
I did not know that, Wayne.
That should have been your first round pick. Anyway, so that I agree. And here's the thing: is that Kenny Pickett? I have his stats here. He played 12 games, or he started 12 games, 62% completion. That's not good, especially in today's NFL. You need to be up around 67, 68. 173 yards per game. That's really not good as a quarterback. Under 200 yards per game. He has 6 passing touchdowns in 12 games. That's one every other game. Like, that's not going to make it. Mason Rudolph has started 2 games, 69% completion, 282 yards per game, 2 touchdowns in 2 games. I'm going with Mason Rudolph.
And you know what also Mason Rudolph is doing? He's getting the ball to their best player, dude, George Pickett. Or Pickens. Yeah. That guy is awesome, dude. Like, he's their best offensive weapon. Give that guy the ball.
All he needed was Myles Garrett to smack him in the head with a helmet, and he was going to be ready to go.
Yeah, I didn't know you were going to bring that up, Wayne.
Okay, now we're flying through these topics. We're going to slow it down. But we have a big mouth wide receiver. I mentioned it earlier in Jamarr Chase. Jamarr Chase, prior to playing against the Chiefs, was asked what stands out about the Chiefs defense, who, by the way, one of the top defenses in the NFL this year, was asked what stands out about the Chiefs defense. And he said, nothing. It's not like they have a Jalen Ramsey, which on one side, yes, that's true. But I also feel like that was a shot at L'Jarius Sneed specifically, because he's their top corner. Mm-hmm. And then he said, they have to double team me and T. Higgins every time we play them because nobody can cover us one-on-one. Well, they play, the Chiefs win 25-17. Bengals are eliminated from the playoffs, and Jamarr Chase finishes with 3 catches for 41 yards. So I guess they didn't need Jalen Ramsey.
No, I was just going to say, I'm glad you brought up that stat because that's the one that's glaring the most. 3 receptions for 41 yards. Like, and I don't think he was really, I watched that game. I don't think he was doubled the whole time,
No, he wasn't. Here's the thing. First of all, I'm going to give props to L'Jarius Sneed. That guy is playing like an absolute animal this year. Like, if you are a wide receiver, you do not want to be matched up with L'Jarius Sneed. And if you're a running back coming out of the backfield on screens, you do not want L'Jarius Sneed coming down to tackle you because he is hitting people like a semi-truck.
But even so, even though they did shut down Jamarr Chase and they shut down the Bengals, I didn't think the Chiefs still looked that impressive.
They haven't all year. Their offense has been really bad this year. A lot of turnovers with them.
So it's like, granted, they did beat the Bengals, but they didn't beat them like they didn't like steamroll them. You know what I mean? So like the Bengals are still in the game for most of the game.
Listen, the name of this segment is not "Are the Chiefs Overrated?" It's Big Mouth Wide Receiver. So we're talking about a big mouth wide receiver running his mouth. And I'm curious to get your take. Why do players at any position run their mouths at all?
Well, I guess we all know that wide receivers run their mouth because they want the ball. And like I was saying earlier, they want the ball because they feel like the more they get it, the more they're going to help the team win. When in all instances, we both know as experts, that's not true. Like you need a whole team to win a game. So I don't know, man. Like I've always kind of wondered why it's wide receivers and not like running backs or tight ends,
Receivers and corners, which are the opposite sides of each other, run their mouths a lot. But if you're the coach of a team, if I'm the coach of the Bengals, aren't I telling my team, don't say anything? Have you ever heard a Patriots wide receiver, even when it was Randy Moss, who's one of the greatest receivers of all time, ever say anything before a game? Like, the Patriots have it locked down there. They're like, do not say anything that can be used as bulletin board material. That should be in every locker room, because why give a team any extra incentive to play you harder? I just don't understand it.
No, I agree. But that's like the whole adage is like they want that. Like they want to pump the team up, give them some sort of motivation,
Yeah, so you can catch 3 balls. Which
no, you're right. Like it doesn't always work. It definitely doesn't always work. But Jamarr Chase is that guy, man. Like he said, he's 7'11", man. He's always open. But apparently in that game, he was closed a lot.
Yeah, well, let's talk about Mr. Always Open. Mr. Always Open, not only did he have 3 catches in that game, but his previous game against the Vikings on December 16th, he had 4 catches for 64 yards, no touchdowns. The game before that against the Colts, 3 catches for 29 yards against the Colts, no touchdowns. In fact, looking over his stats, he's had 4 good games all year, and the rest of his games have been 4 or 5 catches or 3 catches. So Jamarr Chase happened to have beaten up on some teams this year, but for the other 12 games of the year, he's been below average. And so maybe he shouldn't have a big mouth and he shouldn't be talking about how he's 7'11" when you're getting shut down by every team in the league minus a handful.
True. Do you think that a lot of his success depends on Joe Burrow? him and their connection.
If it does, then he's not as good as he thinks he is.
Right, and that's what I was just gonna say. I was like, if that's what this whole basis on, is that he and Joe Burrow, like it's not gonna last long in this league.
Like Tyreek Hill left Patrick Mahomes and went to Tua, and he's having one of the best receiving years in NFL history. So that's what great receivers do. Doesn't matter who's throwing you the ball. You have a great year. Calvin Johnson, Megatron. It didn't matter who was throwing him the ball. I know it was Matthew Stafford, but if he had Tim Tebow throwing him the ball, Megatron was going to get 1,400 yards on the season.
I don't know about Tim Tebow.
Oh, of course. Tebow's the man. No bad mouthing Tim Tebow on this show. I'm a Tim Tebow guy.
Hey, I'm a Bronco fan. I can bad mouth Tebow if I want.
Yeah, who's the last quarterback that won a playoff game for you?
True. No, Peyton Manning.
The guy that
both almost wrong, Wayne. What the hell?
But no, I just love Tebow's personality. I thought he got a raw deal there in Denver. I understand that he was drafted by the previous regime, and we see this a lot in the NFL with coaches. They come in, they're like, this isn't the guy I picked. I don't want to run with him. I get that, but I don't know. I feel like he got a raw deal.
Yeah, like I'm sorry, we shouldn't have brought Tebow into this. I'm not insulting Tebow in any way, but I agree with you. I think Jamarr Chase should have kept his mouth shut. Like they weren't even in the playoffs yet or anything like that. Like they still needed to win, and then he has a terrible freaking game. So it's like, yeah, dude, shut up.
Yeah, stupid Jamarr Chase. All right, well, let's hear it. Another news.
All right, another news. I'm gonna run the show a little bit for the rest. Some categories. I'm gonna give Wayne a little break. This was reportedly my topic I really wanted to talk about. Okay, so David Tepper. It came out during the game that he was getting harassed. I wouldn't say harassed. I guess harassed is the wrong word. But they're having a discussion with a fan next to his booth. And at the end of the game, he throws a cup at him. And he walks out of the booth. Since then, he's been fined $300,000. Before I get into my take, Wayne, what's your take on this?
I think it's assault. And I feel that way about whether it's fans dumping popcorn on NBA players or water bottles or whatever it is. Do not throw things at other people. That's crappy behavior. In some states, it is misdemeanor assault. I hope it is in North Carolina. He should be charged with assault and get some sort of a community service. I would love to see David Tepper picking up cups on the side of the road for this action.
I'm glad you feel that way because I'm in totally agreement with you. I think $300,000 is a slap on the hand. Like sorry, you shouldn't have done that. Like the guy is worth in the billions, like 20-some billion dollars, and you're only gonna fine him $300,000. That's nothing to him. That's like chump change to him. That's like $14 in my pocket to him. Like that's nothing. Like how is that gonna show him that he's done anything wrong? Like it just bugs me that the owners aren't as accountable as they are against players. Like another saying I'm going to come out and say is that owners get protected and players get punished, and that's totally how it is, and it's not right.
Well, because owners own the league and players don't.
But I mean, they should be more held accountable. He did some wrong stuff, and he should be accountable for this. $300,000 is nothing. Like he shouldn't be allowed to go to the next game. There should be like something more accountable.
No, and I agree, and I'll get into that in a second. I'm gonna use another analogy because I am the king of analogies here. Here's my analogy. If you work at John's Hardware, John owns the store. You work there as his number one sales associate, right? If you come in late to work, do you get in trouble?
Yes.
What if John comes in late to work?
Yeah, I mean not.
Right, he owns the business. He can come in whenever he wants. Same thing with NFL. The owners don't get in trouble because they own the league, and players get in trouble because they're employees. But I will say that I do think that this should have been a heftier fine, and I'm surprised it was so small, especially considering the hot water he's already gotten himself into. It seems like they're going to force him out. But I know you and I talked about this before we started the show. I said it's so difficult to get owners to vote out other owners because the likelihood is if I do it to this guy, who's going to stop somebody from doing it to me?
So I'm glad that you brought that up because I'm glad that we talked also about it before the show. Like, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think the owners are going to – they probably won't do the whole voting thing, but they found ways to get Dan Snyder out of the league. So you think this is what they do, the full court press against Tepper to, like, get him out of the league?
I think so. You can definitely make it uncomfortable for him to continue being the owner, and they can do that, and then force him to sell and still make money. By the way, when Snyder sold the team, he made a bucket of money over what he paid. Same
Right.
thing's going to happen to Tepper. His punishment is going to be making billions of dollars of profit. That's how he's going to be punished for this. But yes, they will get him out of the league. They'll get a new owner in. Mark Cuban, maybe? Huh?
I don't know. They always bring up the Amazon guy. Forget his name. Bezos. But I read somewhere that he's waiting for the Seattle to come open because they're saying that the Seattle owner might want to sell the sister of drawing a blank on his name. Huh? Paul Allen. Paul Allen, yes.
Yeah, that'd be great. So, and I've actually said that Jeff Bezos could buy a team. I had thought back when Washington was trying to sell, instead of selling to whoever they sold to, they should have sold it to Disney, and then Disney could change the name to the Washington Avengers, and they would have the Avengers logo on the side of the helmet.
No, dude, no more owning stuff for Disney. They own everything already.
No, Amazon owns everything.
The NFL was probably nah, you're not going to own us too. Sorry.
I don't know. I like the idea because I'm a fan of the NFL, and I'm a fan of Disney, and Marvel, and the Avengers.
But I'm with you, man. We need to get Tepper out. They need to get Tepper out. I think all of his actions, it's just going to show you, if you watch the video of this, it shows the GM standing right next to him, and he doesn't even flinch when this happens. And that kind of action just kind of shows you that he does this all the time, and it's not a surprise. So the GM just didn't even flinch because it's this is what he does.
Yeah, he may have even threatened it, if they say one more thing, I'm going to throw this coffee.
Yeah, so it's just wow, man. He's got everybody conditioned that I'm gonna have it. I read an article today of the guy, one of the sports writers from the Charlotte, and he says that there's a term that they use there called a Tepper tantrum, and that's what he's been doing.
I believe it. Yeah. Now we can.
Okay, so let's move on from this topic. I think we and Wayne have both got our points across about that. This is another topic I really wanted to talk about is these playoff scenarios. Okay, so we have two scenarios that are up for grabs right now. You have the AFC East between the Bills and the Dolphins, and then you have the NFC South between the Bucs and the Saints. So I don't know about you, Wayne, but me and you both have our nerdy things that we really love about the NFL. One of the things I really think is fun and I'm nerd about is the whole, hey, if this team wins or if this team loses, this team gets in. I'm not sure why. I just always thought it was really interesting and kind of funny because you never know how it's going to work out. And so the way that it works is the Bills, if they beat the Dolphins, they're in. But if they lose and the Steelers and Jags win, they're out of the playoffs completely, which is totally crazy, right?
Yeah, I think it's totally crazy because I had actually predicted, if you remember, several weeks ago on the show, I said the Bills are going to win the AFC East. And this is before they went on their run, just because they're a really good team. They have a really good defense. Their quarterback is really good. So the idea of them not only not winning the AFC East, but missing the playoffs entirely is mind-boggling.
So it's just crazy. I think this happened to your Patriots one year. That year they went 11-5. I think this same kind of scenario happened. They had to beat somebody and they didn't, or vice versa, and that's why they didn't get in. When they had an 11-5 record, if I remember right.
Yeah, Matt Castle.
Yeah. Okay. So then the other scenario is NFC South between the Bucs and the Saints, and the way this works is they don't play each other, but if the Bucs win, Saints lose, they're in. Saints win, Bucs lose, they're in. And then there's all other scenarios of whatever happens. But I wanted to bring these up because I think they're really cool. I'm not sure. What's your thoughts on this whole winning in and all the different scenarios, Wayne?
It's puzzling to me, and it reminds me of college football. You remember when college football had the BCS rankings before the college playoff committee? They had the BCS rankings, and you would get assigned 1.8617 points or whatever, and you were ranked. And you would see things at the end of every season, something like this would happen, and they'd be like, man, if Florida hadn't thrown an interception in the second quarter of the second game, then Ohio State would be in. It's just these little stupid things that's dominoes that'll just fall out. And obviously, ripples in a pond, right? The farther you get away from the stone, the bigger the ripples are. And so, I don't know. It's crazy to me. As far as what I want to see happen. I want the Bills to get in. I like the Bills. I'd like to see them get in and do fairly well. I want the Bucks to get in because I like Baker Mayfield and I'd like to see him do well. And the Saints are boring to me. Ugh.
Dude, I'm glad that you said all that because I want teams that'll get in that are like going to be fun to watch and that are really fighting it. Like you said, the Saints would be boring. I don't want to see the Saints. I want to see teams that are going to fight to win the championship, to go to the Super Bowl. I want to see some good games. I don't want to see blowouts. I want to see good playoff games.
Well, let me throw a scenario at you. This is a would you rather or what if, right? Let's say both these teams get in, right? The Bills and the Bucks. Which team do you think has a better chance of winning the Super Bowl?
The Bills.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer, right?
Yeah, totally. So those are the few scenarios. I think there's more out there. I think the AFC South also has a scenario. There's a lot more involved in that because it's like kind of a three-way tie or whatever it is. Them all fighting for it. The Jags, the Texans, the Colts, and I'm not sure how it bounces out of who wins, who loses. But that's another fun one to watch. So watch those games because you don't know who's going to necessarily win that division until the outcomes. So for me, I'm really interested in this weekend because I'm like, oh, this team won. This is cool. Like like I said, I'm a nerd into this stuff.
Now, what scenario has to happen for the Patriots to make the playoffs?
None, Wayne.
Okay. They just have to start the season over.
0. Okay, so power rankings like we do every week. Let's bust out my power rankings, Wayne. Let's see them. Okay, so this week I still have the same number 1. Ravens number 1. 49ers got pushed up to 2. I don't know. I couldn't remember if they were 2 last week.
3.
Cowboys 3, Lions 4, Browns 5, Eagles 6, Dolphins 7, Bills 8, Rams 9, Chiefs 10. And the outside looking in, we have the Steelers, the Jags, the Colts, the Packers, and the Texans. Okay, Wayne, I know you always have some sort of discrepancy with my list. What is your thoughts?
Well, the Cowboys moving from 7 to 3, that's a big jump.
Yes, because I think they've been playing really well.
In the last week?
Well, I mean, just overall this last season, like that game against the Lions showed me a lot. Like I could go back into some play calls. Like they had some bad play calls called on them also besides the Lions. So like, I don't know. I feel like that game was going to go either way. Not based on the play calls so whatever. So I don't know. I just feel like they battled really good with a good team in the NFC, and that's why they got raised up. And maybe not that high, but I just feel like they're a top team in the league, so that's why they're number 3.
So a game that many people feel they lost
moved
them from 7 to 3.
For me, it did. Yes.
Okay. The other one
I hate doing because you know how I feel about the Cowboys.
The other one was the Dolphins going from 2 to 7. So a huge drop for them.
They had a drop because I feel like I wouldn't necessarily say they're reeling, but I don't think they're going to do well in the playoffs. So I just feel like they got a drop.
Now, my argument here, because I do think, again, at least they lost 56 to 19. They got blown out. But here's my thing with the Dolphins is that we've been saying all year, or I've been saying all year long, that the Dolphins don't beat teams with winning records. They beat losing teams, and then they lose to teams with winning records. And I've been saying it all year long that's been happening. But now that it happened last week, because you had them 2 last week, even though I was saying they only beat teams with bad records. But now that they lost to a team with a good record, the team that's probably going to win the Super Bowl, they drop all the way down to 7.
Okay, Wayne, maybe I'm just conceding to you, finally agreeing with you now.
Okay.
I agree with you. I don't think they're that team. I think like you're right. They haven't beat anybody really good. I don't think they will beat anybody good in the playoffs. So that's why I dropped them. I'm like, they're going to be dropped.
So it's basically, there are 2 states of mind that people have with me when we disagree. One is saying, you know what, Wayne, you're right. The second one is only figuring out later on that I was right. And
I'm conceding, and you were right in this scenario that they are not that good team that I thought they were. So, and that's why they got dropped down. And is there any other discrepancies you have with the list?
I was curious about the Chiefs at 10. I mean, I don't know. I understand that their offense is struggling, but they still have a really good defense, and they are the AFC West champions. So to have them all the way down at 10th, I was a little surprised.
Yeah, because like we got to admit that they're not the same team that everybody thinks that they are. Like they've struggled most of this last end of the season. And I just like I kind of go with, like I was saying, I've said before many times, like I kind of go with the way that they've been playing over the last few weeks, like, and they're not looking good. And so they're 10. I almost wanted to put them in the Bills spot, but I was like, they're not. No, they lost to the Bills.
Okay, that's the argument I made 2 weeks ago when you had them ahead of the Bills, was that they had lost to the Bills, and you wouldn't. All right, listen, enough agreeing with me later on.
I'm sorry for agreeing with you now, Wayne. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Was it when you wanted me to? It's with you now. You should be happy.
Okay. I do want to ask. So you've got the teams looking in: Steelers, Packers, Texans, Jaguars, Colts. Well, you've got 3 teams in the AFC South there. So one of them is going to make the playoffs. The Steelers could, if they beat the Ravens, right? Can the Packers make the playoffs?
I think so. I think if they win, there's some sort of scenario where they could make it. Yes.
Okay. I'd actually like to see the Packers make the playoffs because I like Jordan Love, and I feel like he's gotten kind of a crap deal this year. Like
I'm glad that you said that, dude. I want to see them too, because I think out of the teams outside looking in, they're the ones I want to see them in the top 10, because they have been playing well. Jordan Love has been playing pretty good, and I know there's probably no discussion of this, but LaFleur should get some votes for Coach of the Year, man. Like he's turned this total team around with no Aaron Rodgers, like
Yeah, maybe. Cool. Yeah, I did not do the rankings, guys, the supercomputer rankings, because it was so much work last week. I was like, you know what? I'm not doing it. The supercomputer rankings are retired for the season, so it's just Mark's rankings. I would do my base rankings, but then I'd be a hypocrite, and I don't like doing that.
All right. Okay, so we have some fan questions from my buddy, my friend, pal, Mark, who I call Bubba. He had some questions. I don't have the questions off top hand. Will you read them off for me, Wayne?
Yeah, so the first one is, I believe, I don't have it word for word, but he was asking, is this Robert Saleh's last year as a Jet? So the Jets going to fire Robert Saleh?
And I'm going to say no, because he's kind of hooked at the belt with Rodgers. Rodgers likes him. Rodgers doesn't want him to go anywhere. As long as Rodgers kind of runs the show. So if Rodgers wants Saleh there, he's staying.
I agree, no, and for a little bit different reason, but similar reason. I feel like he was expected to win with Aaron Rodgers, and when Rodgers got hurt in the first series of the season, that basically bought Robert Saleh, a free card, get out of jail free. Didn't matter how he finished, he lost the guy that was supposed to take him to the promised land. You're not going to win with Boyle and Simeon and Wilson. He's done great with those guys, considering, because his defense is really good. But yeah, I don't think he gets fired. I don't think there's any chance he gets fired, because he's done a really good job. Rodgers is coming back next year, and then we'll see how he does. Now, if he loses with Rodgers, then he's fired.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. I was like, if then it's another whole story. If it next year Rodgers is healthy and they still play this bad, then yeah, then it's him.
The second question, I'll throw you. It's a 2-part question. You remember the 2 parts?
Should a team be able to host the Super Bowl in their home stadium, or should it be in a neutral site? Right?
No. So the first part of it is, should the Super Bowl be played at a neutral site every year, like the Rose Bowl or something like that, instead of at an NFL team stadium? And I'm curious to get your thoughts on that. I'm stealing this show from you, but I'm curious to get your thoughts, because for me, I understand it, but I don't necessarily like it. I'm curious how you feel about having, let's say, just a quote unquote Super Bowl stadium. That's where the Super Bowl is held every year.
Like we and you are both experts. So we both know the reason why they do it is because of weather, right? They want a game with no weather. They want it to be nice. They want it to like not affect the game, the weather to affect the game. So that's why the NFL does it and have the same places every year. So I'm really glad that my friend Mark brought this up, because I've always been kind of against, not necessarily against, but it's like, why? I mean, okay, I'm not against, but I've been always like for, why don't they have them in other places? Like they had them that one year in New York and it was really cold, and they're never going to do that again. It's like, why not? Like Denver could be a good place to have a Super Bowl, because we're usually warm during that time of year. Granted, it could be not cold, but like the chances of it being warm are more likely than it being cold. And the NFL doesn't want to take that risk. So I'm with Mark, and I feel like it should be able to have it in other places besides the same places they have it every year.
Right. And it is a rotating schedule. And sometimes it's at the Metrodome and sometimes it's at the, Louisiana, and sometimes it's in wherever, California, or whoever built a new stadium that year, like Dallas or Raiders. But I guess from his standpoint, is like, what if the NFL just went out and bought a $10 billion state-of-the-art stadium, and the only game that's ever played there every year is the Super Bowl, and that's it?
Where would that be? And there's going to be a fight for what city that's going to be in.
Mexico City.
Mexico. I don't know about that, Wade.
We're trying to make an international game here.
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. That would be crazy because of like the altitude and all that. But I don't see the NFL doing that. Like, no way.
Okay. Well, I agree with that. The second part of his question, and you've alluded to it a little bit, was should each team get to host the Super Bowl?
Right, and that's kind of in the sense that they should be in other places. So yes, I agree with that. It should be in other stadiums, and yes, in other teams' places. So yeah.
And I think that you're right to an extent. So the reason that it's only held in certain stadiums isn't because of warm weather per se, because they don't care about the players. We've already established owners and players don't care about each other.
Right.
It's because it's about money. And fans will go to destinations like New Orleans, like Miami, like warm places. Fans will gather there by the millions to be there for the game. So it's a marketing thing. And they don't want to be out in cold weather. The reason it was in New York was because New York is New York. It's the capital of the world. There's plenty to do there. I think you would have a really hard time hosting a Super Bowl in Kansas City with Jimmy's Barbecue Shack down the road. Like, you've got nothing to host these fans. You'd have to build mini malls and skyscrapers to host all these fans.
No, you're right. Some cities couldn't handle it, but I think the city like Denver could.
Well, and you might be right about that, but the other thing I think that you run into with an issue is, let's say I am Kansas City. I own the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm watching you in Denver host the Super Bowl and reap those rewards. I don't get any of it. Why can't I host the Super Bowl? I want some of that money too.
And that's probably the whole debate with these owners. That's probably why it doesn't happen, is because of that same thing. Like I said, is all this debate and drama of no, my city, your city, but not every city's the same. Not every stadium's the same, So yeah, there's going to be arguments against it.
Those were the two fan questions, kind of three fan questions. And we do appreciate Mark for sending those in. You can send in your questions to NFLExpertsPod@gmail.com. NFLExpertsPod@gmail.com. Send it with the title questions or fan questions, and we will announce you on the show. We will read your question on the show, and we will discuss, possibly debate your question on the show.
Yes, so chime in. You got the chance to email. So if you can't catch this live stream, or if you're busy, you can't catch the Spotify playback, send us an email. Like, whatever question you may have heard on whatever bit you might have heard in the little live stream or whatever. Send us a comment. Send us a question. Like Mark does every week. He can't make it, and he sends us an email because he wants to hear our opinions.
And of course, we always finish the show with a 2-minute warning. Now, I'm going to talk some boring Patriot stuff because I'm a Patriots fan. That's what we initially developed the segment for. But I know you have something a little extra spicy. So do you want to save it for the dessert, or do you want it to be the main course?
I'm going to leave that up to you. I know I ran the host a little bit for some segments. So I would let you go first. But what's up? What do you want to do?
Yeah, we'll have some boring potato puffs, and then we'll have your spicy jambalaya.
All right.
So my potato puffs here has to do with the New England Patriots. They lost. Bailey Zappi played absolutely terrible. That bummed me out because I like seeing him play well. And they dropped, I believe, to third now in the draft, or they moved up to third in the draft order. It's a whole ongoing thing. The Patriots have secured a top 5 pick, no matter what happens. If they win the last game of the season 100-0, they still get a top 5 pick. They can't get number 1. That's locked up now by the Bears via the Panthers. But 2 through 5 is in play. So the Patriots could lose and some other things could happen. Your geeky calculator.
Yeah, my geeky scenario is Wade.
Where the Patriots end up with the number 2 pick, but worst case scenario, they win, everybody else wins, loses, whatever, they get 5. That's the worst they can do. Not too shabby. As a Patriots fan, I'm a big Jaden Daniels guy. I would love to see him here in New England. However, I do think he's going to be the first overall pick in the draft. So he's not going to be there. Caleb Williams might be. I don't know if I want Caleb Williams. I think that If I'm the Patriots at that point, I draft Marvin Harrison if he's available. And then I try to trade back into the first round and steal Michael Penix from the Broncos.
Why do you got to dig at my Broncos, Wayne? What the hell? I'm not even bringing them up, and you're going to dig
steal
at
Michael Penix from the Jets.
Okay, so as Wayne said, his 2-minute warning was a cheese puff. Mine's going to be a spicy wing for everybody, or whatever spicy thing you like out there. Okay, I was going to talk about the Broncos, like I always do. I really wanted to talk about the Broncos, but a subject came up that really made me want to talk about something else. And everybody knows who it's probably about. My favorite player in the NFL, Aaron Rodgers. He came out on his weekly show that he gets probably paid 6 figures for on Pat McAfee, and he calls out Jimmy Kimmel and says that he's on the Epstein list, which is really, in my opinion, it's not something you just throw out there. Like, I think Rodgers was kind of trying to be tongue-in-cheek with it. Like, hey, I'm joking, da-da-da. But, like, how much it really was a joke? Especially with all this crazy shit, for my language, that Rodgers has said and done. Like, what do you believe? This guy thinks he's so smart. He wants to come out and spout his opinion about stuff he really doesn't know. Because I don't know if anybody knows this, but right after he said this, Jimmy Kimmel came out and was like, say something like this again, and I'm going to take legal action. And I'm really glad that he did that, because Rodgers shouldn't just be spouting off about stuff that he doesn't really know anything about. And I'm just done hearing his opinion about whatever it is, not football related. I'm sick of it. And I kind of wish that they would rip him from this show. So I'm done hearing it. Segment over. Sorry.
I did have to, and I asked you this in the group or in our chat, and I said, do they have some sort of a history or a beef? Because to me, it just seemed weird to pick Jimmy Kimmel's name out of a hat and just throw it out there.
Right. And we looked it up, and there's no beef that we know about. So no, I don't know. I think Rodgers wants to just think that he's right and think that he knows like what's on this list. He doesn't know. Like he knows as much as me and you know, Wayne, is what he's gathered from the internet.
Well, and I don't think, here's my thing, I don't think he was irresponsible in saying what he said, because he didn't technically say that Jimmy was on the list. What he had said was, there's a bunch of people who don't want the list coming out, like Jimmy Kimmel.
Like I was saying, he was tongue-in-cheek about it, but he was insinuating, and that's enough. And I'm sorry, because the stuff that Epstein did is horrific and wrong, bro. You just don't say that about someone like that. Like if he did get involved with this guy, like nobody wants to be associated with this guy. So like you don't just come out and say that about whatever, even if you're joking.
Well, and I think that you and I had this conversation a couple of episodes ago about how I'm like this cool-headed, like level guy. Like nothing really riles me. You can say anything you want about anybody that I know, my family, doesn't matter. I just don't care. I'm not going to get riled up about it. So for me, I think Jimmy overreacted by being like, all he had to do is ignore it. I mean, why did he have to say anything at all? He could have just ignored it and it would have gone away. Now he's made it into a feud. You know what I'm saying? He could have just left it, because everyone would have forgotten about it 5 minutes later if he hadn't said anything.
I don't know, man, but like if it was me, and I was Jimmy Kimmel, and if I know I wasn't on that list, and even if I knew he was joking, it's like even when Kimmel came out and said, if you read the tweet, he says that like, I know you're probably joking, but like this is not something you joke about. This is like taking money out of my family's mouth. Like it's serious stuff, dude. It's just like something he shouldn't joke about. That's
why I'm saying it's an overreaction. It's actually not taking money out of his family's mouth, and it's not endangering his family in any way. It's just him making a joke that everyone assumes is a joke. Nobody thinks that Aaron Rodgers has inside information on this, you know? And so for Jimmy Kimmel to come out and fight back almost like validates, you know, Rodgers for saying it. Like if he said nothing, everyone would, like I said, just would have forgotten about it. And that's like I'm saying, if it's me, because again, I'm the cool-headed guy, you wouldn't even have to be subtle about it. You could say, Wayne is on the list and he flew there on this day. And I'd be like, all right, whatever.
Well, more people should be like you, Wayne, and be more cool, because I'm not that guy. I'm more like Jimmy and would have been like, dude, that's not going down. And I think maybe like I have more animosity towards the guy, and that's why I'm ranting about him in my 2-minute warning. I'm just done hearing about this guy, and I I'm to the point where I don't follow him. I don't listen to anything he does. I don't watch the Pat McAfee show for that one reason. And he still somehow invades our NFL world with this stuff. And it just drives me crazy.
Well, I'm going to say something here. Breaking news for all the NFL experts fans out there listening, watching. I do know whose names are on that list.
Uh-oh.
Aaron Rodgers' name is on the list.
Oh, are you kidding me?
No, it's on there multiple times. Guy had
That's so cool that it broke on this show. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Aaron
Wayne.
Rodgers,
I love hearing that.
It's not just on the list. Aaron Rodgers had a timeshare on Epstein Island.
Oh, wow. Are you like reading an article right now?
No, I'm telling you, I know I have inside information. I did some high stuff, and that's where we're at.
You're a funny guy, Wayne. Funny guy.
That said, we do appreciate everybody who watches the show, listens to the show, writes us questions, comments, shares us on Twitter. Where can you find us on Twitter? At NFL Experts Pod. Where can you find us on Facebook? I don't think we have a tag yet on Facebook, but you can find our page. It's the NFL Experts. Share our stuff, comment, get involved, be a part of the show. That's what we're saying. We're not even saying be a fan, be a part of the show. Send us questions. Let us know how we're doing.
Yes, let Wayne fool you like he just did me 5 minutes ago with this breaking news bullshit. So don't let that happen to you. You totally got me, Wayne. I gotta tell you. But yes, join us again, please. We love hearing everybody's comments and questions. Mark, thank you. We're missing our normal guys tonight, Wayne. Where's Jim and John? Like, where you guys at?
Yeah, Jim and John taking the day off.
Chime in some more, please.
Absolutely. Hey, everyone follow us. Thank you so much. Had a great time. And join us next Wednesday when the rest of the world breaks the Aaron Rodgers news.